Okay, I'm going to just go back one step. So we took our original house. This is a little simplified version of a gable house with a gable roof. This is called the gable end, and it creates that two-sided gable roof. I'm going to move a copy, so in class it would be tap M and then tap Alt or Option. Same thing, Alt or Option are the same key. On a Chromebook it would be tap M and tap Control to move a copy over. And we always try and move a known distance. So I'm going to drag this out and I'm going to let go and tell it to go 100 feet, which is 1,200 inches. So I'm going to type in 1200, enter. We already did this once. Then I could either draw in a line here and a line on the back to fold the roof, to bend this plane. But the simpler way is to hit R for rectangles and draw a rectangle from this point and drag it over to this point. And that just created the line on both sides. Then there's this weird thing where to move a point you don't select anything, because usually you select something like a line or a plane to move it, or a whole object. But in this case we tap M to move it, click on a point and start to drag it, and I'm going to let go until it 144, enter. 144 inches is 12 feet. Then I'm going to click on this point and do the same thing, click and drag it in. I'm going to undo that because it's always better if you mess up to undo, which would be Command Z or Control Z on a Chromebook. So I'm going to click and drag this point in. Same thing, tell it 144, enter. And that creates a hip roof. This is the hip right here. That line is the hip. And underneath there is a part of the roof structure called the hip rafter. And under this part, they're regular rafters. But that's the hip and the hip rafter. So that's a hip roof. Okay, then we can create, this is kind of an unusual one, but there is a house like this. I believe there's one on Dennis Street right by the school. We could hit the space bar and drag a box around that, or triple click it, and move a copy again. So we'll do M Alt or Control M, M Control on a Chromebook. Move it over, 1200, enter. And what we'll do on this one, actually we can do the same thing. We'll kind of pick a random point. I'm going to hit R for rectangles. I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up the roof, and I'm going to start right about there. I'm going to click and drag the rectangle over. And you can see it's being a little weird. So I'm going to hit the up arrow key so it stays locked in to the blue orientation. I'm going to touch the point there. And one of the tools in here is the eraser tool, because we only need this line for what we're about to do. So I'm going to erase this one. I'm going to just tap E for the eraser tool. I'm going to click and keep the mouse button held down and hold it down and drag it through that line. And once it lights up blue, I can let go. I'm going to hit O for orbit. Orbit over here, same thing. Hit E for erase. Hold the mouse button down and then drag right through that line. And when it lights up blue, let go of the mouse. And when I'm doing this, I'm just always, sometimes I'm hitting the spacebar to kind of release it, hitting O to orbit around. And what we're going to do is, again, we're going to select nothing. If you have something selected, just click an empty space. I'm going to hit M to move a point. I'm going to click on this point. You can see I'm going to rock it forward. It's always a good idea to hit the correct arrow key. So it seems to want to stay on the green axis, but I'm going to tap the left arrow key just in case. And it's kind of doing weird things here, but I'm going to say bring it out on green, and I'm going to reach over and touch this point right there. And that's going to line it up with this point and just straighten it out. This is called a prairie style roof. Same thing, I'm going to hit the space bar and just click an empty space. I'm going to tap M, and I'm going to click on that point and start to move it out. It really seems like it wants to stay locked into green, so I'm just going to reach down and touch this point right here. Ooh, it's being a pain. I'm going to hit the left arrow key. Come on, be nice. There it is. Click on that. Even if it's going out here, it's going to reach down with my cursor and put that little 4 arrow cursor right on that point. Let go of that. It's a little bit of an unusual roof style, but because we have one near the school, I figured I'd do that too. And okay, that one's good. Let's do this. Let's see. We could do this. We could move down here. I'm going to hit O for orbit. Go down here. One of our kind of basic setups over here. We could do this. Because my SketchUp is being weird, I probably will have to put. Well, you guys could try this. I'm going to hit tap T for the tape. And almost always when we use the tape line, we don't click on an endpoint like this one. We can sort of click on a random point. We kind of want to avoid endpoints and midpoints because it'll do something different. So I'm just going to click on some random point, like maybe about a quarter of the way out, like this one. Click it out and drag this tape line out. And I'm going to just drag it out. It's being annoying. I'm going to undo that. See, that's actually the wrong thing. Again, I'm just going to hit the space bar. Then I'm going to tap T for the tape. I'll click and drag from a random point, and you can see it's pulling out a tape line. It's still being weird. SketchUp is funny how it really depends on the view that you're in, because I want to make sure it's getting that line. So I'm going to hit T for the tape again, one more time. Click and drag this out. It's still being weird. That's not what I want. Undo that. I'm going to try this line. I'm going to click and drag from this. There it goes. And then I'm going to find the midpoint on this line. There it is. It's a blue midpoint. Now, you guys, we often use the tape to do something like that. I might as well do it over here as well. Just going to click on a random point, not the end point, not the midpoint. Just click on a random point and drag it out. And then I'm going to take that little point of that measuring tape. The cursor becomes a measuring tape. And I'm going to run it along this line until I find that blue midpoint. Then I'm going to start to draw lines. I'm going to tap L for line. And I'm just going to click here and drag out to there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Click here, drag out to there. I don't need the tape lines anymore, so I can hit E for erase and then just hold the mouse button down and drag through these two tape lines. So I want to move these lines up in space and change the planes with it. So what I want to do is I'm going to hit the space bar and I'm going to aim really carefully and click on that line. And when you're adding other things into the selection in SketchUp, you have to hold down Shift. So I'm going to hold down Shift and select that line and keep Shift held down and select that line. Now I can let go of Shift. And let's see how we want to do this. We'll do this. I'm just going to tap M to move it. Get in the habit of clicking on a point to move it. So I'm going to click on one of these endpoints here. Click and I'm going to move it up. And it doesn't want to go anywhere until I hit the up arrow key. So I'm holding the mouse button down and I tap the up arrow key and now it wants to come up. And it's another one of these things where it doesn't matter if I bring it up a lot or a little. I could drag it way up here, but let's see, I think I'm going to do this. I'm going to bring it up. Again, I could let go high or low, but I'm going to let go and I'm going to tell it to go up 96, enter. And that 96 is 8 feet. Now I'm going to hit the space bar and click an empty space to deselect that. Then I'm going to select just this line and we'll move that up. Again, I'm going to click on the endpoint. I'm going to hit the up arrow key. And we're going to bring that up just, how about we go, I'm going to let go and type in 48, enter. And that's the kind of roof that a lot of people will say that that's a Dutch gable roof, which actually is not the right name for it. Or some people say it's a barn-style roof. But the real name is a gambrel roof. G-A-M-B-R-E-L, gambrel roof. Here's another kind of trick that we can do with SketchUp. Well, I think I'll leave it like that because I kind of like that shape. But I could adjust it. You know, I could hit the space bar and select this line, and then hold down Shift and select this line. Tap M to move it. And again, you don't want to get this happening. So whenever we want to move up and down, tap the up arrow key, and that looks pretty bad. See, it can be moved around. My SketchUp's being a little wonky. Sometimes what it does is it's trying to kind of reference the other planes that are there. So I might bring it out on this and just play around with it. So I could move it up a couple inches or down a couple inches. You guys don't really have to do this. Anyway, that's a gambrel style roof. The most common roofs, the gable roof like this one's the most common. Second most common is a hip roof, but you can also have combinations. So let's see, we can do another one here. We could also do this. This is actually be another hip roof. I think I'm going to hit E. I'm going to go to one of my copies here. Hit E for erase. So I'm just going to drag through that line. And then what we could do is basically just draw an X through this. I could hit L for line and click on this point and drag over to there. Then I could click on this point and drag over to there if it's cooperating. And then this is also going to be a hip roof, because you can always tell a hip roof because the planes lean in and bang into each other. So what I'm going to do is select nothing because I want to move a point. So I'm going to click an empty space, hit M, and I'm going to click on this point and start to drag it up. And it may kind of like, again, you always want to get in the habit of hitting the correct arrow key. So I'll hit the up arrow key and I'll bring it up here like this. And another thing we can do is, as long as you hit the up arrow key, we could bring it up, but I could also take the cursor and just move it over here to the left, and if I touch this roof over here, it's going to bring it up and match that point. Okay, I could touch this one, match that point, or I'm going to go over here and touch the gable. So we could match that point. So that's also a hip roof, because each one of these planes leans in and hits the other one. Okay, so we've got a prairie style roof here, except I didn't do the back. So, or if I did, maybe I undid it by accident. So I'm going to go back and hit M to move this point. Click and drag it out, and I'm going to reach down and touch. See, it doesn't, mine's being a little weird. It doesn't want to access that point, so I have to hit the correct arrow key, which in this case is the left arrow key for green. Now I can touch this point. If I touch this point, it would bring it out even with that. So I have to touch this point. So that's the prairie roof. We've got a hip roof here, because all the planes lean back and crash into each other. And we got our gable roof over here, and we have our gambrel roof here. If you asked a builder on Long Island, most people would say, "Oh yeah, it's a Dutch colonial," but that's not really the correct name for it. It's really a gambrel roof. We could do another one. Actually, I think I'll leave it at that, and maybe I'll create another video for. There's another roof called a mansard roof. I'll save it at that. Always make sure you save at the end of class. The way we should always do these files is whenever you open up your file at the beginning of class, first thing, go to the three dots, three lines over here, hit File, Save As, and change it. So I should have done that at the beginning. I'm going to go File, Save As, change the date, tell it OK, and then tell it what folder to go in once this comes up. I'm going to click on Name so it sorts alphabetically, and I actually have it inside this folder. when you get to your folder, you want to make sure you don't double click on the folder. You just select it, because if you get in the folder, you won't be able to save it. So just select the folder, your ARC1 folder, and hit select. And that just saved there. Done.